The next session is actually a very interesting session as well. It's called Emerging Trends in Gaming. To tell us more, I'd like to invite Saikat. He's big on data and facts, so it'll be very interesting.
Thanks a lot. Nice, good to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Just to give you a short introduction, I'm Saikat. I'm the Vice President of Mergers and Acquisitions and Strategy at Nazara Technologies. I predominantly look at mergers and acquisitions, investments, and to some extent business development activities at Nazara. Nazara, as you may be aware, if you are not, just happy to give you a broad rundown. We are the only publicly traded gaming and esports company in India today. We have multifold consumer-facing IPs, starting from esports, gaming, ad tech, just to name a few of our franchises that you can see on the deck here. Sportskeeda is ours, Comic Con India, Kidopia, Animal Jam, World Cricket Championships, etc. are some of the consumer-facing IPs that Nazara has today. If you are looking for publishing or investments, please feel free to reach out. But coming on to the topic here, this topic is very close to my heart. This is something that I have been doing for maybe a couple of months now. It's going to be a little data heavy, but don't worry guys, we'll use data just as a supporting point, just to give a clear picture and the broader roadmap of where we are heading towards. A good way to start this would be to look at what happened in 2023 in gaming in general, and then eventually focus on what are the things that we could potentially expect in 2024 and potentially 2027 and beyond. So potentially gives you the next 3-4 years of roadmap when it comes to overall trends that we are currently seeing today. When it comes to 2023, it may come as a little shock to a few guys who are just starting out in gaming today, but globally, gaming revenue stood at $184 billion. It is more than music, movies, and books combined. So it's by far the more predominant way of how users engage with media, and this is something that we have been doing, so we should be very proud about that fact. The other interesting fact to note is 2020 was a very peculiar year. COVID struck. A lot of people were actually stuck at home, and people started engaging with a lot of the gaming audience and gaming content in general. If you look at the trend beyond 2020, you could very easily see that we have never really touched that 2020 levels, which is again a great sign of how new users were actually infused into the gaming ecosystem and how they continue to engage even beyond this. The other bullish fact about gaming in general is by 2025, we are expected to touch 200 billion and potentially maybe more going forward. These numbers are geography-wise breakout of overall revenues across the years. The interesting thing to note about this particular chart here is that Latin America and Middle East and Africa are the predominant geographies where games have been growing. Some of the homegrown examples include Gameberry, who have done an incredible job monetizing their users, not only in India, but also abroad, going with their Ludo game in general. The other fact which was highlighted in my presentation, in the earlier presentation, was India. India in general is a shining star in gaming markets, consumer markets today. If you are thinking about India, you have to give it a little time because we have skipped a lot of gaming revolutions and evolution historically, but eventually we are very bullish about India as a market in addition to Latin America and Middle East and Africa. When it comes to platforms, you can very easily see that mobile is still predominant platform on gaming today, with close to about 50% of overall revenues coming from that platform, which has relatively stayed same, maybe seen a slight decline in the year 2023 compared to 2022. PC and console, however, have also remained stable and sort of growing in 2023. When you look at number of players though, it's an interesting figure. Mobile added 200 million new players in 2023 compared to 2022. But the revenues have declined, which essentially means that a lot of new audience and new players are coming from emerging markets, which is again a great sign and a healthy growth of mobile ecosystem going forward. Looking at some of the genres in free-to-play, so if you are a mobile developer trying to look at new genres, which or the genre should I focus on, etc. This particular slide could potentially come in handy. If you look at the Western markets predominantly, US, France, Spain, Germany, and UK, these are the 5 predominant markets in the Western Hemisphere from a revenue standpoint. Match 3 genre and social casino genre are the only 2 genres which witnessed growth, primarily on the back of Royal Match and Monopoly Go. The graphs on the right show you a very interesting picture. Coinmaster, who has been a market leader in social casino luck battle genre, has been toppled by Monopoly Go, and consistently so for the last 6 months. And Monopoly Go was a game that was released just 6 months, 7 months into in 2023, they had 7 months of overall runway, and they have still been able to beat an already established IP enjoyed by players across the world. The other notable example that happened in 2023 is Royal Match. For the first time ever, any game beat Candy Crush. Candy Crush has been there for the last 12, 13 years. They have always been the market leader. This was the first year when such a major upset happened with Royal Match. Essentially, the broader picture to look at is, despite the market being more competitive and increasingly so going forward on mobile, core innovation and genre expertise is very much valued by the players, and you can still carve your own niche and enter into the top 10 charts if you have that capability and that mettle from a development standpoint. On the PC and console market, North America and Asia Pacific are the 2 biggest markets, of course led by US and China respectively in those geographies. Interesting thing to note here is live services game. Of all the new games that were launched in 2023 on the PC and console market, live services game contributed 59% of overall revenues, which is a significant rise when it comes to PC and console monetization, primarily because it is not the predominant way to monetize users. This graph particularly shows you that only 30% of the audience are actually 30% of the revenues are actually being driven by microtransactions on the PC and console platforms. Premium still dominates the platform, but it is increasingly getting difficult for naysayers to deny free-to-play or live services game model on the PC console side of the business. Now, this was the summary of 2023, the year that was. Looking at the year that could be and some of the emerging trends, this particular slide is again something which shows the evolution. If you look at the overall evolution of the gaming journey, so you had first arcades, you had console, you had handheld devices, PC, revolution, mobile, and then you had the rise of AR, VR. One thing to note in this particular slide and how you are thinking about emerging trends in general, because you would be inundated by a lot of these trends as we continue to develop, is if any trend is democratizing the development or consumption, that is a trend that ideally you should focus on. Because if you look at console, it primarily did or removed the friction of going into a place, paying for a game, and then playing and engaging out of it, which made it very accessible for users to consume content. The other thing to note is, if you are increasing the immersiveness of the gameplay, that potential trend is also expected to stay, even if the initial wave has died down, which can be shown by the AR, VR, which picked up 7-8 years back, but never really took off anywhere, and then now we are seeing rise and uptick of AR, VR games as well. So democratization in how you distribute, consume, and develop content, or democratization in how you are able to give more experienced gameplay experience for players to engage and consume content, I think are the 2 crucial factors to look at any emerging trends that you may come across when it comes to gaming. If you are able to satisfy any of the 2 requirements, potentially that trend is going to stay even if it does not pick up initially. The defining elements in 2024 when it comes to emerging trends are 3: social, user-generated, and transmedia, which is again supported by a multitude of other initiatives, which is payments ecosystem, cross-platform, VR, cloud, Gen AI, and potentially Web3, which we'll discuss each simultaneously. Social gaming, there are 4 key elements to social gaming in general. You could think of the first element being social spaces. So you have a Roblox environment, an experience where you can go, you can engage with other players, speak with them, talk with them, do activities with them there. So that's one sort of looking at social spaces from a gaming landscape. The second, which is again getting a little bit of attraction, is playing with influencers. So if you follow some influencer, if you watch their streams, etc., the influencers do invite you to play with them. So that again is something which is getting really, really active. Sharing of game screenshots, slots, humble brags across social media, etc., is also something that people are going crazy and nuts about. And then brand marketing, particularly on Roblox and Fortnite today, has shown the power of social gaming and creating of social spaces and advertising content on social spaces. When it comes to UGC, this is again a broad mental framework of how you should look at UGC platforms. If you are a young and budding entrepreneur, you should definitely look at creating games and experiences for Roblox and UEFN. I believe they are a great way to start and get traction in, because the development costs are low and the traction is significantly high. But the way to look at the user-generated content market in general is on the vertical scale. You have on the top verticalized assets, which essentially means the genre of game remains the same. So imagine Skyrim user-generated content engaging around the same genre of games. Roll20 typically would engage only with a board-based game. So Dungeons and Dragons would be a great example of that, and any iteration on Dungeons and Dragons could be a great example. On the bottom, you have horizontal, which essentially indicates different genre of games. So Minecraft, Roblox could be a great example where you have different genre of games, different experiences, all centered towards a single platform. On the horizontal side, you have on the right hand platform first, which essentially means you can create games across that platform. So it would have their own languages, it would have their own nuances, own audience bases, etc. And you have to create experiences across against those sort of constraints and those sort of parameters that you're optimizing for. And on the left-hand side, you have game first, essentially meaning that if you are creating a game on Fortnite, it is to be centered around the core gameplay loop. As of today, I'm sure Fortnite is evolving as well. So we would potentially see Fortnite creative or Fortnite UEFN environment moving towards or competing with Roblox head-on. On the transmedia side, this is again a very interesting, I'm sure you would have heard of the recent launch of Fallout series on Amazon Prime. Look at what Fallout did. So Fallout games typically had a user engagement in the low hundreds, potentially 300, 400 concurrent users. After the release of Fallout series on the 10th of April, you could potentially see a 700 times increase in their overall audience base and audience engagement. So transmedia as a way to engage users, not only on the games, but also across different content consumption type, distribution platform, or engagement type, potentially could be a huge or give you a big boost to your games as well. So when you're thinking about creating games, do think about how do you leverage transmedia IPs, content, etc. in your own game core loop and give the same immersive feeling for the audience that they would have somehow engaged with. Particularly, I'm quite excited about some of the movies and series that are coming up. So Borderlands, Sonic, Minecraft, Ghost of Tsushima, Legends of Zelda, all of these are game first IPs, then being developed into movies and TV series, which is again a great news because this has typically never happened in the past. Typically, the books or the movies used to get transpired into games, but this is the first time that the reverse is happening. The other important example on the transmedia would be the launch of Edge Runners on Netflix. So Cyberpunk had a very modest launch. People were expecting great big things from CD Projekt Red because of the Witcher 3 fame, but they have not been able to engage users to the level that the team has the capability for. But look at how the MAUs increased after September 22 launch of Edge Runners on Netflix. The engagement shot up by again 500-600% at that stage. Newzoo report suggests that an IP integration in general, I mean, I'm not talking about transmedia in particular, but an IP integration with your game potentially can give you a lift of 40% in overall MAUs and continue to engage users over a longer period of time, getting a lot of organic traction. Monopoly Go is probably a great example. Of course, the rise of MAU is potentially much higher in Monopoly Go, but this is on average, even if you are engaging or interacting with an IP which does not have as popular or as much popularity as Monopoly Go. Another interesting trend in 2023 is of the top 250 games by MAUs launched on PC and console, 54% had IP integrations in them. Look at the top 10, top 50 charts, wherein the IP integrations shot up to 80%. So that essentially means in 2023, the new games that were launched in the top 50 by an MAU segment, MAU category, 80% of them had IP integrations. Essentially, this means that IP integration is a key and crucial aspect for game development. On the payments infrastructure, I'm sure you have had sessions on web shops and other things, but web shops is a part of the entire direct-to-consumer journey. There are some other elements that you could potentially try on your own as well, but web shops definitely is a key segment to that. I would encourage you to go and read up reports, open source available media articles, etc., which indicates that Playtika, Scopely, Supercell, Moonactive, all of them are generating revenues from anywhere between 25-30% to as high as 60% of revenues from direct to shop. It's a great way to engage with your high paying whales, engage users. You can think of this as a live ops extension to your existing payment offerings that you have on the App Store. So you cannot neglect the web shops aspect in general. The other two factors which I'm also interested in on the payment side when it comes to gaming is real-time payments and buy now, pay later, and how they are potentially integrated into the gaming ecosystem going forward. There are no notable examples, at least that I know of, but I'm quite excited to understand the real-time payments ecosystem, which India is leading, by the way, because all thanks to UPI, with 42% of overall real-time global payment share. On the cross-platform side of things, almost every single venture-backed company today who is developing game are looking at launching game on one platform but have a roadmap to launch it on other platforms as well. Cross-platform is a definite way to increase your overall target addressable market and how you can engage users across other platforms. You need to look at how other platforms are, or the users on the other platforms are, what are the type of contents they engage with, and therefore how do we adapt our IP on any given platform, either mobile, PC or console, to bring it to other platforms. Some notable examples include Roblox launching on PlayStation last October. They're already the number 5 game by overall user base already in the last 6-7 months or so. The first being Fortnite, of course. But Homa launching on Nintendo Switch, Stumble Guys launching across PC and console, I believe are great examples of how do you look at launching your mobile game into other platforms to monetize users there as well. This again is an interesting graph on the right hand side, which shows that if you're launching games on 3 or more platforms, you are engaging your whales or your users much better. So the overall engagement time increases by 300% versus launching it on just one platform. Already, titles on PC and console are focusing heavily to monetize these users on mobile as well. Mobile, 35% of them are just mobile only as of now, but I'm sure going forward, these trends and figures potentially would change. Looking at the VR market, one of the leading indicators on the VR market is the overall adoption of VR headsets, which we expect to increase by twofold in the next coming years, 2 to 3 years, potentially by the innovation that Apple brought in already, which got poor reception, but I'm sure their roadmaps, that's the first iteration. I'm sure as we keep on increasing the overall launches of these new devices and new gen devices, you will potentially see much more sophisticated and much more nuanced devices and solving a lot of consumer pain points that they have today. So we are quite bullish on VR as a market. If you are trying to create something on VR today, try to also look at how you can monetize through B2B applications. Some of great examples recently invested by Lumikai Autoverse is a great example of that as well. The other rising phenomena is cloud gaming. Now this is something which is interesting for all emerging markets, primarily because the device capabilities and other constraints potentially put the audience in the emerging markets in a position where they are not able to enjoy content as freely as people in Western markets potentially could. Call of Duty Modern Warfare is a great example, which launched on mobile. I was not able to play even on my high-end Android device, but I was able to play on iOS. So some of those nuances could very easily be catered with cloud gaming, and cloud gaming is definitely on the rise, despite what Other market indicators, including shutdown of Stadia, would indicate some notable players like Now, GG, etc., doing great work. They're partnering with mobile dev companies to distribute their content on cloud as well. So if you are building on mobile, if you're building on PC console, do have a look out on which are the service providers you could tap into their expertise of and potentially bring your game on cloud as well. Gen AI is again the talk of the town. Last year, a lot of advancements had happened in generative AI in general. This particular chart shows you a clear dilemma that you as a developer may have. The cost, time, and scope trifecta. You cannot optimize for all the three parameters simultaneously. You can optimize for cost or time, but you have to reduce your overall scope. You can optimize for cost and scope, but then you have to give your team enough time to build projects and content out. So you cannot optimize for all the three variables here simultaneously. What generative AI has done is it has enabled us to optimize for all the three verticals and all the three potential factors for any development production process. Eventually, we believe that there are two things that are going to happen. The first is AAA quality games being developed by indie teams. That definitely is a possibility. So you would have a much more content depth. You would have AAA quality and production style just developed by 4 or 5 people with a very small production budget. The second thing that could happen is you could see a lot of content similar to how you would see it on TikTok, YouTube, Snap, etc., wherein people are creating these mini games, short experiences catering to a specific niche over multiple periods of time. So you could reimagine your live ops by usage of generative AI as well, by introducing new and fresher content and fresher engagement mechanics. Just to give you a short rundown of where we are already. So from a studio perspective, we are already at level 4, which is partial utilization of generative AI for some of your content production pipeline. From a game perspective, we are still at procedural level. From an AI perspective, we have still not touched the generative AI stage, which is level 3 and level 4. Potentially, what from a game perspective this will look like, and I just want to give you a visualization of the same, is that suppose there are 2 players playing Call of Duty or some other League of Legends or some other gameplay, they would have fundamentally very different experiences into the gameplay. So each game would have a very different path when it comes to how the players are engaging and how they are getting the features unlocked and progression systems and other things getting unlocked in the game. We are already seeing some companies using or getting into the level 3, so we are somewhere between level 2 and level 3 in the game side, where some of the narrative-based games are using generative AI to give different narratives and perspectives based on user tastes, perception, and other factors that they take into account to feed into the overall Gen AI model. Here are some of the tools, maybe a little outdated, but some of the tools just to get you started when you're looking at creating content and production processes. But the larger picture being, you should definitely look out and visit sites like Product Hunt, Easy with AI, Future Tools, etc. to look out for what are the different types of products are available that can potentially help you to bring out fresher content, etc. To summarize, just to sort of condense the entire information and give you the big picture, we are quite bullish on gaming industry in general. We believe that 2023, despite the lack of growth due to multiple macro trends and factors and parameters, is poised for a good growth. 2025 is something that we would see $200 billion mark being crossed. Free to play on PC and console is an undeniable fact as of now. Significant revenues are being driven. If you are developing a PC console, you should look at free to play model as well, or live services model. LATAM, MENA, and India are the shining stars in the consumer segment. Social, UGC, and generative AI potentially mixed together can create a massive difference when it comes to overall gameplay experience that users can enjoy. Payments is again something that you cannot deny. You should definitely explore ideas with regard to web shops, with regard to buy now, pay later, with regard to direct to consumer platforms, etc., and see how you can potentially use payments as a competitive leverage against your competitors. Cross-platform and transmedia again are quite important. We have already seen 80% of top 50 games on PC console launching has transmedia and IP franchising, and VR is again something that we are very bullish about. Happy to get any questions if you have. We have still a couple of minutes left. Otherwise, we'd love to close the session. You could reach out to me on LinkedIn or WhatsApp. I could share the deck with you there. But happy to take questions if you have.
As a large publisher yourself, right? How many devs that you see in your conversations from India who are hungry to go kind of global, right? And what do you hear from them? Obviously, what are the problems that they're facing when they're thinking of going global? Because I, as somebody who spent 25 odd years in this in this industry, as I was telling you in my conversation sidebar, I just kind of, when I came back to core gaming in Xsolla, just kind of felt that this market has not reached its potential as it could, right? Like, especially, I would have hoped there would be 100 Nazaras, right, around. So as a large publisher, what do you see when you hear indies or developers talking to you and going global, and kind of what are the hurdles they're facing, like generally, just for our understanding?
So there are layered nuances to your question. It's a broad question. I'll try and do justice to it. I think people are now starting to open up to the idea that they could create a game out of India which could potentially be successful globally. We have seen now notable examples and great exits like Moonfrog and Play Simple already happen in India with a multi-hundreds of millions of dollars deal. Then we have homegrown examples like Gameberries of the world, which are doing incredible job at monetizing users abroad. Then we have the second generation and third generation who are seeing the exit, who are trying now to create those products. So it's a multiplier effect that we'll eventually see. Something which happened with Turkey, something which happened in Finland. All of these companies started making games, got good exits, good money, ESOPs, whatever. They were comfortable, and then they started to aim bigger in their life. So I think that is a psychological barrier that people have started to cross now. The second layer to this is the capability standpoint. I think research is something which is lagging in India. We don't know the top grossing games globally. So guys, please Google me. There's a feature, see top grossing games, go and play. Only after playing you would understand what are the various differences and nuances that these guys are adopting, whether it is in the backend, whether it is in the UI UX, whether it is the progression systems, the balancing, n number of different things that goes inside making a great game truly great. So you should do your research, try to understand as much as possible about a particular game, about a particular genre before you actually deciding to make a game. Just because you like a particular genre, you have to have that necessary sophistication so as to you go and play and understand the various nuances that will eventually make you successful. The third thing I believe is potentially under leveraging the talent that the team already has, which essentially means that we are not able to leverage or get our hands on to VFX artists, which we are known for across the world. I mean, all Netflix movies, Marvel movies, etc., are made in India. These are all Indian companies, Indian people who are actually doing a lot of these VFX and animation work. Art, almost all major global companies, starting from Glue, EA, Ubisoft, have their art centers in India making work for the global audience. We have a good number of people in our own surroundings who can give you quick feedbacks, etc. So take their feedbacks very early on. Have a very, very short production cycles. Don't wait to make a GTA 6 on your own. You will not be able to, because their budget is, I don't know, 700 million to $1 billion. Don't try to make a GTA 6. Don't wait for that long. Just fail fast. That way you would learn a lot more. And that mentality somehow has not penetrated. So I would say 3 layers, 2 psychological ones and 1 probably underutilization of resources. If we are able to leverage that and do our own research really well, understand the user behavior really well, we'd potentially be able to create more Play Simples and more Moonfrogs, more Gameberries, Octros, Gameshons of the world.
Saikat, Raju here.
Hey, Raju.
Thanks, Saikat, for a very informative presentation. One question specifically I have on Gen AI. What is your advice to developers on the pitfalls of Gen AI? Like, we do keep hearing the legal aspects as well as a lot of cloning that is happening. What's your advice for the developers?
I would rather see any legal or lawsuit, etc., coming to a company, a small company, as a good problem to solve. Because if you are not able to create, I mean, you will get a legal lawsuit only once you are successful enough that someone could come and sue you. So I would still consider it as a good problem to solve at a later stage on the life cycle. But the benefits that it could give you today is enormous. A lot of the techniques and tips that you can essentially use, which potentially will not infringe on the IP rights of some key IP holders. Therefore, you would be able to shield yourself from any future lawsuits, etc. So keep an angle to it. Do not completely neglect it. Keep an eye on it. But I still believe using GenAI in an ethical manner can solve a lot of problems. You don't have to produce a content and launch the content. You can do concept art, you can do prototyping, you can do multiple things for rapid prototyping and iteration. You don't have to launch necessarily that content. And once you have that right product that you can then scale, then you have the appetite to take higher risks. At that stage, VCs and other investors potentially could come in. You would have greater comfort reaching out to your parents or friends or family or angels that you have in your network to get the funding done and produce content without using generative AI if you feel that potentially this is something that you do not want to do. But leverage GenAI to the extent that you would want to, but please do, because that potentially would help you a lot.
And I'll just add in here for a moment, because I'm an investor in an AI company. I can tell you that the companies are already applying, and what Saikat is saying right now, right? Companies are applying into services, BPO services, right? AI is applied in our company, right? I told you, we use ML, right?
Yeah.
And so it is a great enabler. Please, as he said, please use it. Do not get worried about it. I think the biggest problem is people think that AI, it's not like, you can do it, but the worst use of AI is you put a prompt up and say, please create a painting for me. That's the worst use of AI. As a painter, you should use AI by saying, I'm thinking of a scenario where I want to draw up a mountain. Give me some ideas, some thoughts. It's like almost like talking to a human being and trying to get your creative juices going or whatever you're thinking of. Use it as an enabler, almost like another human being. But it's not like a tool to kind of build everything together. That's when you'll get lawsuits, because you're making something that you just have to use it as an enabler. It's like your assistant, not like your replacement.
And if you're sophisticated enough, you would not rely on tools which are fundamentally paid that I showed. Almost all of them are paid eventually, if not initially. You could actually interact with the source code. So you can actually use things like Stable Diffusion directly on their platform, running a local instance of it, creating your own models, which then is protected by that intellectual property rights, because the model that you are creating and optimizing it for, it's very unlikely that anybody else across the globe would have the exact same model. So you are not infringing on any copyrights, etc. So you have to be sophisticated, but at least start using in some way, shape, or form. Eventually, then moving on to the other aspects if you feel that the benefits are really, really great, and I assure you they are.
So, actually, what is the market size for the crypto-based or it may be a blockchain-based game? Actually, we run the company called the crypto-based application, mobile-based game. But we have a lot of installs, we have a lot of users, but no one is ready to buy that. Any advice on this, or is there market, or in India, or it not? I don't know.
There are multiple applications to Web3 in a game. So you could essentially create a skill-based RMG platform. You could create a true ownership of characters, IPs, user ID, handles, etc. in a game. You could look at ownership across platform or off platform with NFTs, etc. So all of these applications are part of Web3 chain, which essentially focuses on ownership of the game. Right now, the games that you are playing, buying, doing anything on digitally, you have the license to consume the content. You don't have the ownership, so you cannot essentially resell those products. That's the fundamental tenet of Web3. The market is big. The market is great. The problem with the market currently is, I think Web3 games today need to get their economy and balancing right. Uh, if you look at the established markets like stock market, for instance, right, there are three sets of investors. So you have traders, you have arbiters, you have value investors. Uh, Traders typically would focus on these short-term arbitrage opportunities. Your arbiters would focus on, keeping the prices same across all the bourses that the stock is listed on. Commodity traders, I mean, it's typically would that. So any major asset class today would have these three major type of class of investors. The problem with Web3 today is that the games are not of that quality, League of Legends quality or World of Warcraft quality, that it has sustained user base over many, many, many years, or Candy Crush even type of audience, which have a very loyal audience base or audience base across multiple years, for you to sustainably scale that model. So essentially what you are doing is you are bringing in a lot of speculators. And with bringing in a lot of speculators and making it heavy, which is essentially traders, you are creating a sort of a structure where if the asset grows, it will grow exponentially. If it falls, it will fall exponentially immediately. So I think we need a layer of value investors. Typically, the way I see to create value investors within Web3 game today is to make a game which is exceptionally great, which will bring in these value investors who will hold the assets for a longer period of time. So that's one way to answer it. The second way to answer would be to have your economy designed in such a way that you would essentially be able to focus. But hey, we have the Web3 experts here. I'm in no way, these are my opinions, but we can definitely argue or debate about it.
There's some guys behind you can talk.
Done?
Thank you, Saikat.
Thanks guys.
That was a really nice, engaging presentation.